Hello quilt friends, welcome back to week 4 of the Midnight Rose Garden Sew Along. We're here in the studio today where it happens to be a little sunny. I live in Minnesota, so it doesn't happen very often in the winter, and I usually have to go over by the big window that's in the front of my studio and do my demoing on my ironing board there. But today it happens to be sunny, so I can step back and sit in front of one of my quilts while I demonstrate. So I've got some little demo boards ready here with our step for this week. So what we're going to make this week is we are going to do the leaves. So it's going to be a fairly easy week. It won't take you that long to do what we're working on for this week. So you can grab your pattern and open it up to page 7 if you're doing the big quilt. That's step 13. If you're doing the table runner, page 5, also step 13. And we're going to work on these rose units, or these leaf units. So what you're going to start out with is your green leaf print. You'll have a rectangle of that, and then you will have 2 little squares of the green leaf prints. So you should have several different green prints to pick from here, but you're going to want to grab 2 that are a matching print. And then we're going to do folded corners on the 2 opposite corners of the block. So do you see how it's slightly offset there? And you're going to sew from corner to corner and then flip like so, and you will get a unit that looks like this. So I'm not going to go over everything with the folded corners again today because I did that in week 2 and I talked about it quite a bit. So if you'd like to, you can go back and revisit that video if you want to refresh your memory on how to do those folded corners. But I'm assuming most of you have that down now, so we're going to skip ahead. And now we're going to work on bordering our center leaf print. So we want to grab 2 prints, these 2 that match our little square here that we put on. And then you're going to sew together right here and then add this piece on the right. And then what it's going to look like is this. So it doesn't look very leaf-like yet, but we are going to take our background fabric and add 2 more folded corners. So if you're doing the quilt with the cream background, this would be cream instead of navy, but you should have everything labeled with what step they go for so you'll know what to use here. So this is step 14. Then we're going to take those 2 squares and we're going to do again the folded corner technique on both of those. And then you're going to end up with a leaf that looks like this. So I will say that if you use a higher contrast print, your leaf center is going to show a little bit more. This one, it doesn't show quite as much, but I just used an assortment of green leaf prints. I just made sure that the border matched on all of those. Okay, so then you're going to make, I think it was 4 or 8 of those if you're making the table runner. Let me look. Oh, 14 or 8 if you're making the table runner. If you're making the big quilt, you're going to make 33 of these. Then we're going to do some sewing together of these leaves. You're not going to sew all of them together, but do as many as the pattern says to do, and we're going to sew them together into a unit that looks like this. So how this is done is there's a background rectangle that goes here, so that just gets sewn on the top of your leaf unit like so. And once you have those sewn together, then you're going to be able to add another leaf next to it. And then you're going to have 2 more background squares, again, that are set aside for this step, and you're going to sew those onto either side. So if you're making the table runner, you'll either make 2 or 4 of these. And if you're making the big quilt, you're going to make 9. So those pieces are pretty big. It goes pretty fast. There's what it looks like in the cream background. So go ahead and follow through those steps. So it's 13 and 14 in the big quilt, or 13, no, that's the table runner, sorry, 13 and 14 if you're making the table runner, and 13 through 16 if you're making the big quilt. Now next week we are going to be making more things with those leaves, and this is why we don't sew all of them together, but we're going to be making our stem unit. So next week we're going to sew some bias triangles and do a few other different techniques that are needed to make the angle part of the stem. So that'll be fun. If you are making the double rose table runner, this one, there is actually no diagonal stem in that. So you get the week off if you want it. But if you're making the big quilt or the single rose runner like so, then you're going to want to tune in and work on that leaf unit or that stem unit with us. So That's all I have for this week. So happy sewing, and we'll see you back here again next week.